As the presidential reality show comes to an end, and we get to pick the CEO of the American corporate empire, me and Zachary Marlowe discuss what this all means not only for America, but for the world, and how ridiculous it is that in the 21st century, given our current age of scientific capabilities, of incredible problem solving technology, we maintain an outdated and broken system called free market capitalism, a literal death cult that has no idea what true human sustainability means. And when we look at the American elections, it's just another dog and pony show with no substance, a spectator sport of capitalist agents representing two sides of the same coin. If the political system had any legitimacy, if democracy was real, there would be dozens of political parties, and the people would be educated on voting for ideas and not people. And let me just say that if Americans had any level of sanity and education, everyone would be voting for Jill Stein. But sadly, we don't live in that kind of world, and the shit show must continue. Anyways, I'm done ranting. Hope you guys enjoy the talk.
All right, this is the most important election of our lives, people. Democracy is on the ballot. It's fascism versus freedom and justice. The children of light against the children of darkness, right? This is the narrative that we're being inundated with every second of every day. Just a deluge, a hurricane of political ridiculousness polarizing us into this battle, this fight to the death between, ideologically opposed forces at the ends of right and left? Or are we looking at actually a perfect representation of the capitalist system, of two of its cronies, two of its most ridiculously loathed and unpopular, yet neck and neck figures that are pitting us all against each other in what is, as we'll get into in this conversation, an illusory false form of democracy where ultimately capital is on the ballot. Both candidates represent capital, and regardless of whether you're voting for Trump or the alternative, I forgot her name, Kamala Harris, whatever, she's so empty, you're voting for capitalism.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the sad reality is that people even think that in America we have a thing called the left. There is no left. The Democrats are like right, and the Republicans are like, at this point, very far right. And so the illusion is presented. Yeah, the fundamental things that drive an economy, what actually should be priority for society, are completely sidestepped and completely ignored. And instead we have identity politics, which one side is yelling at the other one, like blaming them of doing this and that. And the systemic fundamental mechanisms that drive all the destruction are completely ignored. And instead we're just focusing on basically purely damage control. I mean, that's the only reason you would vote right now for anybody other than Trump at this point, would be to maintain damage control, while hopefully some sense of sanity kicks into the world. But what I would argue about Donald Trump, the greatest danger he possesses, is that I just told my friend yesterday, is like, I wish he was just a narcissistic, racist, and misogynist. I wish that's all he was. But it's actually way worse, because he is the biggest billboard representation of the business and capitalist mentality of winning at any cost, winning regardless what. You want to be a winner in life. You want to dominate. And, a poster child for indifferent self-maximization and tribalism, group association, hyper-nationalism, as we can see with all the racist shit that they've been saying in the rally a couple of days ago in Madison Square Garden. But yeah, basically that's where we're at right now in American politics. And I think that would call that really late stage capitalist politics. That's where we're at right now.
I mean, and these people are, so many people are like, oh, 300 million people, and this is the best you can do. Are these really a representation of us? And I think they're actually a perfect representation of the system that they exist to represent. That representative democracy itself was not developed as a democratic system. As people like David Graeber love pointing out, as I delight in pointing out, the word democracy was not in the Declaration of Independence or Constitution one time. And so these people are a perfect representation of the capitalist system that they're here to represent. I saw this great video last night of all these pastors and fundamentalist Christians, like with their hands on Trump, laying on hands and praying over him and saying, Donald Trump, you're a vessel. You're a vessel for Jesus. You're a vessel for God's will. And it really just got me thinking that this man really is a perfect empty vessel. He is a blind narcissist who basically stands for nothing, has no vision of the world. There's no articulated policy structure and what he's talking about. He doesn't really have a plan. I have concepts of a plan. he doesn't really have something that he clearly stands for. And it reminds me of one of my great psychological icons. Carl Jung talked about Hitler. And it's passe to compare Trump to Hitler, and they're both fascists, and both sides are calling the others Nazis or communists or whatever it is. But I think Jung's analysis of Hitler was extremely valuable and extremely relevant right now. He basically said that Hitler was the unconscious force of a nation embodied into a person. He said his voice is nothing other than his own unconscious, into which the German people have projected their own selves. That is the unconscious million Germans. That is what makes him powerful. Without the German people, he would be nothing. And so Trump is basically a glassy, reflective mirror that his only thought is Trump, success, power. And he's a very ruthless bully. He's very effective at this game of pushing himself as the answer to whatever the question is. I'm the best this, I'm the best that. That's his platform, is Trump. And ultimately, anyone who's insecure, anyone who is unconscious, anyone who feels the unconscious rage and frustration of our society, or sort of harkens back to basically this unconscious identification with the underlying violence and genocidal sort of narcissistic destruction that is the foundations of America and our capitalist system, they see themselves in Trump. And I think it's very interesting that Kamala is very much like this. She is an empty slate. She will say anything to succeed. She absolutely stands for nothing. She has gone from supporting Medicare for all and being against fracking to being against Medicare for all and supporting fracking. And basically, she's running on this sort of like, I'm the true Republican candidate. But the people don't buy it because basically she has a weak ego. She doesn't have the strength of the ego that Trump does, where he has such an obsessive like default to him. He believes so strongly in himself as this man baby projecting this mech suit of power and sort of fascistic might that people can basically see themselves in. And ultimately, he is a veil for much darker forces.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very extreme representation of the capitalist mindset because he's hyper self interest, hyper dominance and competition, and yeah, he is like you said, he's an empty vessel for the people to will themselves in. The people who are frustrated and at their you know misunderstanding of the world and the larger systems at play, and they just they like to scapegoat the problems on like immigrants or corrupt politicians instead of looking at the actual decaying social system. These figures like Trump and fascist leaders, which are becoming more and more prominent in the world today, are like a sign of things to come. Sadly, if we keep playing the same business as usual, as society as we see it, the business structure owns politics. So as long as we have a society that things are up for sale, which we have, we pretty much have the highest expression of free market capitalism globally than ever before. When people say we don't have a free market, they're completely wrong. Everything is up for sale. This inequality is only getting worse. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they both represent the business class. They both represent corporations. They both have a very similar meat and potatoes worldview that, labor for income is the way you get shit done. You know, free markets are the way you spread wealth. Unchecked, blind economic growth is a system. You know, the vice president debate really showed me this great moment where they're talking about climate change and they're like, the moderators like, climate change has been described as an existential threat to humanity right now. Half of the southeast in America is completely underwater, whole towns are being destroyed. We're going through this moment where on TV we're seeing our own country being submerged in water, and whole towns like Asheville, North Carolina, one of the most beautiful towns in the world, is completely destroyed. And the conservative vice president, JD Vance, who is an empty veil and a proxy himself for Peter Thiel and other dark tech San Francisco elitist interests, pretending to be a populist, says climate change might be a hoax, but regardless, the answer is for us to drill more oil and natural gas and increase jobs. And Tim Walz, who is like bandied out as like this sort of he's a diversity hire for for like your middle of the road progressive dad who cares about things and thinks people should have health care and is called a radical because he gives kids school lunch. He says, they call him a radical socialist and all that, though they're so different, and he's going to destroy the family and all this stuff. He goes, Of course, climate change is real and it's an existential threat. And of course, we're going to use that as an opportunity to drill more oil, natural gas, and increase jobs. They don't disagree fundamentally at all on the real fundamental issues. And the way they engage with these complex, systemic, ecological issues and with the issues of a fundamentally changing world, a world that's way beyond, the ability for a mercantile system, developed in like the 1600s to be able to make decisions about society. As Noam Chomsky said, they create this sort of veil, this illusion of extreme difference where they are
Of
tooth
course.
and nail at each other's throats, saying this person is a diametrical opposite of everything that I stand for. And they use these token sort of identity issues like abortion as like really their only differences. And they
Yeah, I
throw
mean,
those out front and center when in reality, they don't disagree that much. But the thing he pointed out that's so brilliant is you have a very narrow, constrained, focus grouped, media controlled window of debate, the Overton window, and everything outside of that is just shut out. And so you have this very narrow window of debate, but inside of that, you have extremely volatile, angry discussion and debate that makes people think, oh, these people must be so different. We must be so different.
yeah, I mean, that's what they do. They stir up and encourage very, very vigorous debate within the narrow confines of very, like, pretty much irrelevant issues compared to the larger order issues like, planetary sustainability, climate change, and the labor market, how the entire economy is a complete scam. All the young people are feeling very hopeless about their future, which is very true. I mean, the money, the inequality being driven is absolutely insane. Like, it's absolutely should be enraging to anybody what's happening, considering all the disasters you talked about that are happening right now in the United States. And instead of people getting help from the government, we're sending tons of money to Israel. That's the one thing that they're both, on same agreement on, is that we should be allowed to, during late stage capitalism, even during all the inequality crisis, we should be just making sure that we're committing our genocide and assisting in our colonial pet finishing the job. Um, and yeah, it is very sickening because as much as you hate, it's very justified to be very outraged and upset with the Democrats for what they're doing, the genocide in Gaza. He's like, we should let Israel finish their job. Um, so yeah, that's why we have to talk beyond capitalism. Anyway, we have to, as activists and people who actually are revolutionary or planning for the future, we have to open up the dialogue and change the social zeitgeist. The discussions that are happening in the mainstream and in the intellectual circles, they should be about other topics that are actually relevant to society. So
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to follow the money with Trump and Kamala Harris on Israel because they're both heavily funded by APAC. I saw this article that was like something like 70% of the recent elections that we had, APAC was involved in and was funding candidates, and their candidates won. And so you have a foreign entity, or really, which is an extra, sort of like an extraterrestrial state of the United States, the 51st state. You made a great video about that.
yeah,
That Israel is basically meddling in our domestic elections because their interests are our interests, as Joe Biden said years ago. Like, if we didn't have an Israel, we'd have to create one to protect our interests in the region. And so whether that's just cowardice on the part of Democrats who really in their heart of hearts care about the Palestinians and want to fight back, which is not what their actions show us. They're actually committing genocide right now, ironically running on a platform of like, oh, we're going to change this, as they're failing on all the other issues of, oh yeah, we're totally going to take on corporate power and fight back the rising tide of inequality and all these things, when it's like they've been in power and they give this olive branch the to the Republicans, uh, to attack them on this front, to be like, what the fuck are you doing? You haven't done anything. And it ultimately just underscores the fact that, one, Gaza is a referendum on this election that is very possibly going to lose the Democrats their seats, is going to lose them the election because they can't even bring in Palestinian speakers to tell them, suck it up and go vote for Kamala. They won't even do that because APAC is so extreme. And yet the other point here is that they're in power doing fuck all and campaigning on like, oh, we're going to change the system and we're going to help you and your families. And like you said, the people are enraged. The people are upset, and rightly so. And ultimately, this is the Democrats' election to lose because they've been in power. and they failed us. They've been in power for, like 8 years before this, and they failed us. They didn't codify Roe v. Wade. They haven't made any really substantial efforts toward getting off fossil fuels. In their infrastructure bill, in their fucking climate change bill, there's a clause that says for all new alternative energy infrastructure, you have to increase oil and gas by X number of amount. So they represent pure compromise and a sort of gaslighting and a phony progressivism, a nice, friendly rainbow flag veneer over capitalism that's destroying the world and exploiting the workers and doing all these things. They have ultimately sown the seeds for the fascism that is Trump and Biden. And them going even further to the right in response to that, to court this illusory, 15% of the population who are like moderate Republicans that just statistically do not exist, that they cater everything to, for them to partner with Dick Cheney and all these former Republicans and people who worked on Project 2025. Like, they are just completely selling themselves out, selling out the left, and completely pushing the Overton window to it's just shut. They're slamming the Overton window on our fingers as we try and reach in for a morsel from their oversupped table. Sorry, I'm going off on
Yeah.
a
No,
rant.
no. I mean, all very valid points because when you look at it, it's like you said, the business interest is what's going to be expressed in the end. So the Democrats have become so desperate to cater to right wing thinking. If you notice, that's why they're saying all the things like we're gonna drill, or we're gonna, you know,
Build the
uh,
wall.
yeah, and build a wall. Yeah, like Kamala was mocking Trump, like, oh, he didn't even finish the wall. He only built a little bit of it, and she was like, yeah, just their language is so sleazy. Like we've said all along, the Democrats are in some ways more soulless than the Republicans because they pretend like their system is better. Like their representation of the system is better than what the Republicans are doing. And Trump is just they hate Trump so much because he makes their system look worse. Basically, it makes it more overtly totalitarian and indifferent and uncaring and ruthlessly competitive. Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So like that's the reason why they hate him is and both sides offer absolutely nothing. That's why we have to yeah. I mean, we have to sidestep the whole thing and talk about the systemic causes as well as the systemic solutions to this mess.
I want to make one more point about the vessel that Trump is and what he really represents. That MAGA and all this sort of race baiting and all this really crude, like lowbrow, pandering to, the dispossessed American masses fucked over by the neoliberal agenda, who are in a small town, sort of basically clinging to whatever normalcy they grew up in, reaching backward into tradition, these appeals to tradition and the family and normality and all these sort of hallmarks of fascism that they promise a return to stability. They're revolutionaries who want to bring us back to the way things were rather than forward. But the people that Trump really represents and the people that are going to really determine this election are the dark tech elite, like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, who was the sort of mentor of JD Vance. He's their guy, and he's in there. And I noticed this when he got into Trump's party, it was a very dark, sick turn that basically a bridge was built from, right-wing fascist, lowbrow MAGA conservatism, and then, just this sort of craven, real estate tycoon, oil baron, sort of obvious, like sicko capitalist that Trump has always represented boldly and openly. The ones he promised, like, give me $2 billion and I'll end all regulations and let you drill as much as you want. They opened up a channel to where now Trump is the mask, the plastic Halloween mask of the tech elite of
Yeah, corporate
Zuckerberg,
fascism,
Bezos,
basically.
Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and really
Yep.
like these transhuman techno fascists that are in the background of this whole thing,
I
basically
mean,
trying to gut all regulation so that they can have an unchecked nuclear powered sort of AI advancement and an accelerationism. Effective accelerationism is the name for this movement. And I literally had a fucking like a debate, mini debate with the founder of this movement recently at a fucking party. I strangely, a little bit of a tangent, ended up at this millionaire's crypto hub libertarian mansion on the hill, this pentagram shaped red satanic looking party with all of these people that are like building the AI system of the future. All these like former San Francisco techies who are now going full right wing, with Trump hat guys walking around and you know, the host is like literally dressed like Henry VIII. And I had debates with these people, and it's very clear that he's their guy. They don't care about him personally. They don't align with him. They probably wouldn't get along at a party. Well, maybe they do because they're a bunch of fat nerds. But sorry. Anyway, yeah, they see him as their guy. That they don't care what about all the other stuff as long as he deregulates their industries and basically allows them to build nuclear reactors so that they can basically just develop ultimately the AI god that is going to become the new invisible hand of the market.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's where we're headed. Techno-fascism, um, as Elon Musk said at the rally, dark MAGA. You saw him say that? Dark MAGA. And like a true death cult that people are so riled up, almost like a bloodthirsty cult, where they're all cheering this winning mentality. And if you notice a trend that's pretty obvious, if you pay attention, that they pretend like they're so popular with the people. They're saying all this racist crap at the New York rally, but even there, they're acting like, oh yeah, New York is like, oh yeah, New York is all Trump, all pro Trump. So there's this like delusional entitlement and prepping their fan base for like, oh, Trump is so popular. This fascist, winning mentality is so popular in the world that if we lose, it has to be, it's got to be stolen. It's got to be cheating. So, expect some kind of crazy outburst, some kind of crazy reaction in case Trump doesn't win. Which, I mean, I'm personally, Zach, I'm hoping Trump doesn't win. I hope the Democrats win, and we can deal with it. Then we can keep working with it, try to do something. Because if Trump wins, the regressive nature of what he represents is so bad that it's going to set people back, set society back that many more years before we get any sense of sanity when it comes to public discourse. So, I think I hope that the Democrats win, but at the same time, I support Jill Stein. I like you said, we have to have a conversation with the Green Party or try to get them to galvanize themselves every election to gain momentum that way, but also use that as a grassroots building initiative to get things going. But what do you think? I mean,
Well,
I think
one more thing about Elon Musk, and a really important element of this whole election is that his insanely illegal election meddling, literally like doing like $1 million giveaways, but more than that, the way that he has taken over Twitter under the guise of protecting free speech and basically created a form of manipulated speech that is on another level entirely, where algorithms are literally boosting his biases and they're creating seas of bots to go out there and create false consensus to, again, like you're
yeah,
saying, make people feel like this is a shoe in. And because of the nature of the system, because it's such an insecure system, everyone in it is so insecure, even the richest of the rich, like Trump. Like the narcissist is not secure. They're a pathologically insecure person who needs to project this mobile suit Gundam, this scab over their vulnerability to project security and strength and power when really they feel like victims. And fascists always claim victimization, but it's all hype. And so Elon Musk and others flooding the social media sphere with literal bots, robots who are programmed to just say like Trump 2024 to make weak-minded people think, oh, well, that's the winning team and I want to be on that team, so I guess I'm going to vote for them.
you're
That has
absolutely
a
right about that.
tremendous effect.
That is absolutely damaging, and you're right. And in a lot of ways, the Israel's narrative building, how they have these bots out there to like project like Israel's winning. When you see the videos on YouTube, but they're like, oh yeah, Hezbollah definitely took a big hit there. Oh yeah, like you better not, you always better be with Israel. Like it's very symbolic, the same way that these ultra fascist, insecure regimes and this mentality has to always project this kind of air of winning, and it's just inevitable. We're gonna win no matter what.
Well,
And
Israel is essential infrastructure in building the surveillance state, in building information technology and information war, and they're masters of it. And I think there is an argument to be made that they have dirt on a lot of our politicians. They have, the whole Jeffrey Epstein honeypot thing. I think there's a lot of truth in that Mossad agents and assets like him got dirt on a lot of our politicians, including Trump, including
of course,
definitely Kennedy, definitely the Clintons, and
yep,
they're sort of pushing them into doing things that support their interests, but also just investing into that information and technological weaponized apparatus is in the direct interest of the United States. It's interesting. China's even involved in building this. Everybody is getting a piece of the pie. There's a ton of powerful tech interests in Israel that is basically like a pretty, like, I don't want to use the word socialist because I think that word is mangled beyond repair, but is a country with a very socialized medicine, socialized
Yeah.
education. It's a very effective little colony whose purpose is to build this information warfare technology that's now being used against even the people funding it. And
Crazy.
that represents the self-defeating and animate nature of capitalism. That capital is animate. It has a will of its own. It has a mentality. It has like, beyond the people in it and the individuals making the system go and pulling their levers. Capital itself, the embedded growth obligation, the nature of interest that demands more growth, the competitive sort of system dynamics of the market are really pushing us in a direction where no one is in control. And it's like Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. And
Yeah.
so in shifting that into solutions, in thinking truly systemically, like you mentioned the Green Party, I respect the Green Party's rhetoric. I think it's right on. I think Jill Stein and Butch Ware are great people, but I think their tact is sort of it's very 20th century, just thinking the ideas can win. Whereas we need to build systems. We need to build systems that are bigger than we are, that actually supersede the individuals within them, and to make those systems able to actually meet needs and to form feedback loops between all these different activist groups fighting for all these different causes and creating our own parallel economy that we're then able to step out of this fucking crazy game and ultimately build dual power so that we can vote not with our dollars, not at the ballot box, but we can vote with our system. We can vote with as a coordinated body that is working together, supporting ourselves in the same way the system is all connected and they're all working together, even Democrats and Republicans. They are collaborators in the capitalist system. But we on the outside of that are very fractured and we're not very organized. We don't have our own system. That's a failure of socialism predominating the debate for the last 100 years too, is that a lot of socialists have a very watery definition of what that even means. And we're
Yeah.
not talking in terms of how we actually form new systems using modern technology, using this communications technology, and joining all of our on the ground movements that are doing shit into something that is bigger than all of us individually.
Absolutely, I agree. And you know, we have to be stepping outside the system, but at the same time having some kind of hybrid mentality if we want to actually bring about change. And the Green Party is too focused on winning elections, like you said, and engaging too much with the system. Whereas we have to obviously support certain ideas and advocate for a new system, but it's about time that we get to some kind of level of some form of participatory network we can create where people can be engaged with it to build on that change that we're trying to get to. um, and right now we lack momentum. Yeah, we have to build momentum with some kind of a project. That's why, like, the Black Panther Party was such a huge threat to the United States, because they had the ability to provide some form of self-sufficiency to their people, and I think with today's technology we can do that better than ever before, because things that are way more expensive back in the day are more cheaper. And we have 3D printers. Like, I think I saw a story of a guy built a house for super cheap using a 3D printer, all the parts, everything. And like, we can do things like this, but it shouldn't be in isolated examples. It should be actual community building. It should be reinforcing values, and engaging with a new type of in between systems, kind of hybrid economic interaction that can ultimately build power that way. Because we do need power in the system to bring us to the next phase. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I think a really amazing and important example to draw from in the world that's actually performing economic democracy, where the workplace is democratic, is the Cooperative Federation Mondragon in Spain. And they have a huge company of like 60,000 employees in a federation of co-ops that all sort of mutually support each other in a directly sort of, well, not, I wouldn't say it's directly democratic because it's not like one person, one vote on every single issue, but they have a system where they have a corporate Congress that forms a sort of higher body where representatives from all of the different components and workplaces and smaller councils and the intercooperative fund and all these different bodies where sort of delegates from the other systems that are recallable, that are not like a representative like our representatives that just get our votes and go out there and then fuck what they say they're going to do. You can't hold them accountable. That you can actually recall them at any point. and hold them to what they're doing. And it doesn't, there's not an incentive in being one of those people, those representatives, to gain political power over people. So it's actually just kind of taking on more responsibility and doing it because there's intrinsic reasons to do that, and so that you can get things to function better. But it's a system where there are more levels of participation in the design of our society, in the design of our system, where we are actually making decisions about our own workplace, our own economic output, and our own economic life in an actually existing model that's able to interface with the market in an arguably more effective and efficient way. And so there's all these models around the world, like Mondragon, like Chiapas, Mexico, where the Zapatistas have a fully cooperative system without a political class. They have a system of even more decentralized delegation, where there aren't politicians that are full-time people that are going out there and pressing the flesh and you know engaging in political issues. Everyone in society is expected to engage in the issues that truly affect them. And our false representative system, which was designed to blunt the will of the people and to keep farmers with a craze for paper money, who wanted them to print more money so their debts would be easier to pay in the Revolutionary War, where they knew if the people really had a voice, they would redistribute the fucking wealth. And the class of oligarchs and aristocrats that formed this nation around those ideals did not want that. And so as we, meet with people where they are and say, hey, America, good idea. Let's go further. Didn't work out in practice, compromised from the start. Let's take that spirit of liberty and democracy and freedom and all these words that people use with such emptiness and actually structure them into a system that has dynamic feedback, that is connecting us with each other, and that is actually able to function to produce, to meet our needs, to allow us some say and some control in our own lives, and to be able to meet people where they are, to meet the disaffected conservative masses who are being failed by the fucking establishment, by the state and the market, who are now turning to fascist rhetoric because, well, the Democrats hate them and make it known that they hate them, but the Republicans, they at least talk to them. So we need to break through all of that and transcend all these stupid petty dualities.
Yeah, I agree. The big problem is that the political discourse in the world, and especially in America, is very reactionary. So even the so-called left, the
Yep.
socialists or whatnot, the socialist is like, oh yeah, we have to take control of the means of production, and it should be, the working class, the labor class. I mean, understandable, sure, their frustration, but like, we can't we can't afford to have these reactionary kind of ideologies anymore, because they're not getting us anywhere, and we're not creating our own new paradigm. So it's like what Peter said in the Medium article, why socialism sucks. But it's like, if you arrive at a planet Earth, right, with no preconceived notions of communism or capitalism, what would you do with given the resources of the planet and your intention of what an economy should actually be to begin with? What is the point of an economy? You economize your resources, which means you reduce waste, increase efficiency, at what? Meeting human needs and allowing humans to actually enjoy their life. That's the whole point of life for organisms and beyond humans, is to thrive, do well, and do well in a sustainable way within the limits of your natural habitat. That's what an economy is supposed to be. We cannot even engage in this kind of language with our political system right now, which is insane. Like, they're talking about, oh yeah, so and so is a pedophile, so and so is a murderer, so and so, just personal attacks instead of any recognition about what the hell a system is. Um, I mean, like, you ask the average Democrat or Trump supporter, what is capitalism? They cannot even give an answer on what that is. That's what's so scary about our world with the level of idiocracy. There's so much confusion and just like subjectiveness. Everyone has a right to their own opinion. So all these notions are so, like, to me, they're very totalitarian. The thing that I'm frightened of most than anything is not the dictators, the overt, techno oligarchs like Elon Musk and their cronies. The thing that really frightens me is the average person, the average people on the street, and their values and what they uphold, not knowing that they're literally upholding things that not only restrict them from actually enjoying their lives to the fullest and expressing themselves to the fullest, but also values that are shutting down any opportunity for the future to be better, for us to actually arrive at solutions to this broken world. Um,
Well,
and
also
so,
a big function of
yeah,
this political ratchet, there's the ratchet effect is the Democrats block movement to the left, they block progressivism, they block real climate action, they block anything that really affects the problems we're dealing with, and run cover for the Republicans who move things to the right. And they have taken that hook, line, and sinker, and these last two elections have been extremely disturbing lurches forward in that. Kamala Harris basically saying she's going to have Republicans in her party and morphing the Democratic Party into what the Republican Party was before Trump, and the Trump supporters running with that and being like, hell yeah. Oh, that's what a socialist is, a 90s Republican. And so actual socialism is just like a crazy, it means nothing. It means nothing to most people. And I think, we're not really, when you say socialism to most people, they don't think, oh yeah, workers controlling and owning the means of production. Even socialists don't think that. I think China, who's a state capitalist, one party dictatorship, is socialism. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's holding us back because this old language, not only is it just bad language that, we've chosen, these people have chosen words to cloak themselves in that the majority of the world hates, already because they have a propagandized preconceived notion of what it means. It's also reactionary in that these are movements started 100 or more years ago that are not aligned with our current capabilities and our current systems. And I just find in my own advocacy, and I'm very vociferous about this. I talk to everybody about these issues. I try to engage every kind of person and get every kind of perspective and genuinely learn from them all. And when you talk to people about old ideologies and that crap, they just become defensive, and it basically becomes you saying, oh, I'm right and you're wrong. Whereas if you say, hey, fuck capitalism, fuck socialism, fuck every ideology that has come before. They're all old hat. They all tried, and we learned something from all of them, but we need to learn from our mistakes and create something fundamentally new. You get people's eyes, they're excited. They feel,
Yeah.
perhaps for the first time in their life, that someone is inviting them into a political program that they actually have control over. And that is our job right now, is not to rehash old shit, is not to just be reactionaries endlessly critiquing the Democrats and Republicans. It is to
Yep.
create something tangible and real and accumulative, something that builds power and that reminds people what it really means to engage in politics, which is not to show up to the ballot box and press that button. It's to show up in your life every single day to build a better world and live it and be a part of it. That's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing. That's what we need more of.
Absolutely. But like they said, if voting made a difference, they wouldn't allow you to do it. So this whole thing is a scam, and yeah, um, we have to build the change ourselves. Um, yeah. What do you want to talk about now? Shit.
Well, I think we should just wrap it up there and say basically that it's up to all of us to make it through this crazy time without losing our minds. Uh, I personally think Trump is going to win, and even if either they're going to win the election or they're going to lose, and they definitely have a plan for some kind of insurrectionary way of fighting that result. I think no matter what, regardless of who wins, capital is in power, fascism is on the rise. The Democrats and the establishment will not solve our problems, and it's really up to us to realize that and grow the fuck up and start building our own system. So I think we're going to have a live stream on election day, and we're gonna talk at all this and
Yeah.
more and critique the shit show and bring you all to the circus and just continually remind you guys that guys and gals and thems and theys and everybody in between, Trump supporters and Harris fans and Coconut Club, whatever, whoever you are, please think deeper, go beneath the surface, do what you got to do on election day. I'm not going to judge anybody for what they're doing. There's no good options. It's all a fucking mess. But just realize this doesn't end in the ballot box. It does not end. And it's up to us. And there are real options. There really is. The real choice is a shit system with compromised individuals and disgusting pro capitalist parties on every side that's just selling out all life and all value, or literally anything else. The future could be anything we wanted to if we got together and actually built consensus for it and built it.
Yeah. I mean, like the book Paradise by John Etzler many years ago. It was in the 1700s. He was talking about a so-called utopian society um, that could provide the needs of the people without having to work, furiously as wage slaves. Back then, with steam engines, being able to provide a high standard of living to people without an overtly oppressive economic structure that demands, labor and all this oppressive architecture. Imagine with today's technology and our scientific capabilities what we can do, what we can actually arrive at. Um, because really, when you talk about it, when you say screw all these isms like capitalism, communism, socialism, anarchism, yeah, you want to get rid of those isms, but there's one way of thinking that really doesn't have ego. It doesn't have the self-preservation, status quo clinging tendencies, and that is really the process of science, the scientific method, and scientific thinking applied to society itself, and that doesn't really have an ego. Um, the market system and the capital system is really what has misused science and misused our objective ability to understand the world better. It's misused that and misallocated that towards the accumulation of capital. And as we see, beyond this election, things are only going to get more concentrated in the hands of a few people. And yeah, so we have to build grassroots power to combat what is really happening. And yeah, it's gonna have to happen from outside the system. You cannot bring about change by engaging with a system that in and of itself is counter-revolutionary.
Well, always a pleasure, Arjang. I hope that this talk landed. I hope we didn't just sway people in one direction or another, but to think beyond, to get out of the duality and into, I don't know, some real hope that we can, that these elections are such a sham. And I think a lot of people realize that. And, like Colin Powell said, I think you never waste a crisis, as they use to justify, going to Iraq and doing all kinds of horrible shit. I think we can't let this de- degenerating shit show go to waste. We've got to use it to slingshot people into a new direction. And so, yeah, with that in mind, I'd love to, yeah, just promote a new direction, and to reconvene on election day or the day before or the day after, and see where all this comes to.
Yeah, for sure. We should definitely do a live stream during the election process and maybe even after. But like you said, man, we have to use every crisis, everything that unfolds that like exposes the system further. We have to use that as a way to like tell people, hey, listen, there is a better way. Look at this thing. This thing is only going to get worse. I was showing my friend yesterday the movie Fight Club, and as Brad Pitt's character said, Tyler Durden is like, they're polishing the brass on the Titanic. The whole ship's going down, man. What are we doing over here? Like this system is broken and it's showing it. Every crisis is happening, every political scandal that comes out, we should be like, not only be like, okay, this person's obviously corrupt, but look at this. This is another like millionth example of how the system is fundamentally broken and corrupt. It can never allow us to actually using our logic to arriving at solutions. And you know, in the same way we use every crisis to expose the system, what's happening in Palestine to me is very important. To the world, it should be very important because this horrible atrocity, this greatest crime in the history being performed in front of our eyes, that should be like the sacrifice the Palestinian people are making should be used as a moment to really radically change the world. Because, I mean, you know, yeah, like every sacrifice is important for us to use as a moment, as a chance not to, only hold those accountable, the ones who perpetuating the crime, but also to bring about the urgent need, the fact that we need to humanize humanity, and the only way to do that is to accept the fact that we're one group. We have to destroy these destructive tribalistic notions of in-group out-groupism. You know, so there's only one family, and we need to work towards that. And capitalism is never going to allow us to unify as a human species. So
Yeah, all of these crises, all of these terrors, all of these moments, and just the stupidity, the raw stupidity of this election should should really just leave us all a bad taste in our mouth. We should all just basically stop watching this show, realize it's a reality show, and that it's keeping us from living in the moment and from a real politics. It's actively monopolizing our attention and our energy that should be going into building a new world and dealing with all the problems in the world that we see, and with the real opportunities and the wonderful possibilities that are at our fingertips. If we can just shake off these crazy delusions, this false choice, this insane idiot box mentality. I'm I'm
yeah,
uh I'm out of ammunition right now. I'm just pissed off and tired and a little sad and a little scared. I'm a little scared of not just the outcome of the election, but the fact that not as many people have realized what is happened, and that
yeah.
so many people still take it so seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do better.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on election day, or the shit show.